but I'm not the accountant. Dan Geltrude is. He joins us on the significance of this. And Dan, looking at this reaction on the heels of DoorDash just yesterday, what do you make of all of it?
Well, I think it's signaling what's going to happen in the future. Look, Airbnb, Neil, is such a tremendous idea because from what I see in terms of how people approach when they could go places is not looking for a hotel. They're looking for Airbnb. So what's happening is people are literally adjusting the way they travel around Airbnb. And that's going to have tremendous impact on the industry. And I think everyone is seeing that, hence why the price is going where it is right now.
So, Dan, I'm just curious. I know they wanted to raise, what was it, about $3.5 to $4 billion from this. They're going to raise a little bit more than that. But what are they going to do with that money? I mean, how do they beef up their properties? Do they sort of weed out some of the lesser players, focus more on, exotic locales? Do you know how they plan to use this dough?
I think, Neil, it's probably all of the above. Look, when you have that type of extra capital on hand, it gives you tremendous flexibility to sit back, look at the market, see where this is going, and say, look, we don't necessarily want to be in these areas, and we certainly have the capital now to move into other areas. And that type of flexibility right now, Neil, during a pandemic is tremendously valuable for a company like Airbnb, especially just coming off going public like this. So I see good things ahead for these guys.
Dan, what is your take on what's driving all this interest in these new offerings? Now, I've heard folks say, well, they're getting in while the getting's good. And they don't know how things are going to be in a Biden administration or whether he will ever be able to pull off the tax hikes he wants. I guess that depends if the Senate does flip Democrat, if Democrats win both those seats in Georgia. What is behind this?
I think, Neil, it relates to how quickly business models are changing across the country. Look, it's really becoming, as Bill Gates called it in his book, business at the speed of thought. Things are moving so quickly when you see a company like Airbnb that comes up with a model that really is quite simple, but it's so effective that literally can move the entire hotel industry and the way, again, people travel and how they think of these things. That it's simply a good idea, and people are drawn to that. And of course, with the way the market is, and there's a lot of optimism, there's also still a lot of cash on the sidelines. They see a situation like this, let's get in while the getting is good. And I think it's a combination of all those things is what we're seeing with this company.
You can't help but compare this to the dot-com boom, of course, in the late 1990s, 1999 specifically. Now, anybody and his uncle had all of a sudden suspended math as a means by which you evaluated a stock or a company. I can quite remember, of some of these young kids coming public, and they became instant billionaires. And they used to say, it's no longer price to earnings, it's price to promise, a whole new math. And I always said, well, the old Jack Welch sign, when all is said and done, you have to make money. Now, we saw with DoorDash, we see, with Airbnb, the trend is their friend. The revenues are strong. The losses are narrowing, but they're still losses. And I know that was the plight of Amazon until actually very recently when it started making money. And so you wait that out. Do you wait these out, Dan, looking at this?
Yeah, I think you do, Neil, because these concepts of how literally, again, industries are moving around these companies, I think you stay in it for the long haul, similar to what we saw with Amazon. Look, Amazon basically dominates the world at this point, and you're right, they weren't making money for a long time, but the concept of what they were doing completely changing retail altogether. That's why you're taking the ride. It is based upon a promise, but it's a promise that makes sense. And that's why I think this is something that's going to be here to stay, Neil.
All right. If you could just stay where you are, Dan, and Jackie back with us. Susan Lee also joining us. Susan, if you think about the market environment right now, not only the froth, and froth is a negative term. I don't mean to imply that this is just froth. there's a lot of substance there at B&B. There is to DoorDash. Whether the valuations are warranted is anyone's guess. But it comes at a time when Tesla's stock, of course, has just been on a tear. It joined the S&P 500. It got on a bigger tear. Nothing blocks it. It's that, it's almost like shooting fish in a barrel. You can't go wrong here. And now I'm just wondering this process and how it's playing out. I think there was that famous analyst, Chanos, who had given up on shorting Tesla, for example. Are those, yeah, and I'm just wondering when you see that, are they counter indicators? Just like when everyone is bullish, be worried.
Right.
There's still a good plurality of bears out there. I get that. I'm not meaning to rain on this parade. I'm just pointing it out that there are a lot of evidence, bits and pieces there that show it could be getting ahead of itself.
Right. You've heard the commentary when you see Airbnb up 126% in its debut and also more than quintupling its value in just a matter of months since March. And you saw that also with DoorDash as well, more than tripling, quadrupling its value from June in just a few months' time. I think there are questions about whether or not this is the market peak and this is a bubble that we're seeing once again. I think tomorrow, though, the Monday morning quarterbacking will be about the IPO process. You heard that during Snowflake when that stock popped 111% in day one, and they thought this is a broken model because those that should be benefiting from these stock gains should be the founders, obviously, the early investors, and the employees. When it's up 130% at day one, Wall Street benefits, and they say that actually more of these rewards should be given to those that bet early. So I think Monday morning they'll be saying, how do we get this process better so those that deserve it get to keep it?
Jack, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do we know how they're sharing the loot with workers and or those, who line up these homeowners to get them to put their houses on the market and all that, or the vacation rental market? Is it going to be a wide pool of people? What have we been hearing?
That information I don't have, so I will look into it for you.
You're so honest. If that were me, I would just be giving you some BS response. Dan, I'm kidding. This is how good they all are. Dan, that was the rap against the big, boom announcements in the 1990s, where only a few, including the investment banks that brought them public, were sharing in the loot. And here, of course, I know a lot of them have gone this Dutch auction process where obviously the investment banks are not as into it or almost entirely left out of it. But it tends to benefit a few and not spread to those who made the company a success. Now, I don't know in the DoorDash case whether that's going to apply to its drivers and delivery types and all the rest, but that will get a lot of scrutiny. And I imagine in a new administration, even more scrutiny. What do you think?
There's no question about it. Based upon how the Biden administration is looking at things, they're absolutely going to give a lot of scrutiny to Wall Street. But, Neil, let me just say this related to the market overall. I personally still have a very bullish outlook on what's going to happen. And let me tell you why.
Really?
If you look at interest rates are still going to remain low. Next, you have a lot of cash still sitting on the sidelines. And third, I personally think that we are going to have split government, which means we are not going to have significant tax increases, particularly on corporations. I think that combination staying in place is still going to give the market plenty of room to go up.
Jackie, that's been one of the arguments I've heard, that there's no other place for money to go if interest rates are near zero.